Good Morning Miramar, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. right here, right now.
Good morning, Miramar. Happy Tuesday, May 8th. We're so happy to have all of you on the show this morning, and we're so excited to be bringing to you our 5th installment of Beyond Boundaries with Dr. Fleming. Today's topic is Trust Your Instinct, and we're actually joined by our wonderful guest, Ms. Joy Acoso. She is a psychotherapist and a parenting expert, so we're going to get all of her expertise here this morning. But I would just like her to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Joy Acoso, and I am a psychotherapist and a parent-child relationship specialist. So my mission is to help working moms navigate and strengthen their relationship with their children. We know that motherhood can be exhausting, so I provide that ongoing support for them for whatever they need, whether it has to do with raising their family or things that are going on at work and things like that.
Very cool.
Good morning, Joy.
Good morning, Dr.
Alexis
Hi.
and Danielle.
Good morning.
It's so exciting to have you here. I mean, the title alone, psychotherapist.
I was going to say, how do you become a psychotherapist?
Well, my background is I'm a licensed clinical social worker by trade. And I've been in the counseling field for about 20 years, but in different positions. And so psychotherapist is basically, I have a private practice actually, and I help women with anxiety and depression, and then also moms who just have questions about raising their kids, as far as if there's an issue with low self-esteem or behavioral concerns.
So psychotherapist, social worker, you're also a mom.
I am.
As well.
Yes.
So let's talk about how your motherly instincts influence the work that you do with other moms and other women in your
That's such
in your
a great
profession.
question. That's such a great question. I have 2 kids. We have 2 kids, a 10-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy. And actually, when we started parenting, so I became a mom. I was already a therapist long before I became a mom. And going into motherhood, I thought I knew everything.
Yeah, we all do.
I was like, I got this. I know the theories. I've been helping families since before I became a mom. And no, there was a lot of tension with our firstborn, and we were like, okay, what's going on, and then we started to just step back. Instead of pushing back, we stepped back and we said, wait, let's reevaluate what's going on at home. Why is there so much tension? Why is she not listening? Why are we not connecting? And that's when it all started for me.
That's a great distinction. You said we step back instead of pushing back.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about that.
So instead of, because there's this, for me, I'll just say for me personally, right? And maybe my encounters with my clients, we feel that, okay, I'm the mom. I need to be right. I need to win this argument. But then I realized it's really not about winning, and it's not about being right. It's about first connecting with my child and understanding what her needs are.
Right.
And then I realized that when we had that connection, everything fell into place. Not saying like perfect relationship, but now she listens.
Right.
And now she cooperates more.
Right. Because you connected. You said the key word. It's funny because on the way here, I was having a conversation with my godfather, and we were talking about kids. And he's an educator, and we were talking about, teachers want to come into the classroom, and they want kids to learn. And a lot of times, and we were talking about diversity, and we talk about differentiated instruction, but it begins with connection. And it's like when you're not connecting with a person, how are you going to meet their needs if you don't even know who they are?
Right.
And I don't think it's any different with kids. I have 3 children, and they're all very different, and it really is about connecting with them because they connect differently, and they have different needs.
Yes. I have this saying that rules without relationship leads to rebellion.
I love that.
And that's exactly what happened in our household. Because I came in with structure, rules, but I didn't realize that the relationship was missing.
Rules without relationship leads to rebellion. I really like that.
How much of that is cultural, do you think? The need to embed rules off the bat before establishing the relationships and the connections. How much of that is influenced by the cultures that even your clients come from?
No, absolutely. I think it's a big factor. It's environmental, and like for me, I'm Asian, and so there is a separation. The elders are the elders, you respect them, and a lot of times, you know, the children's opinions don't matter as much.
Very familiar with that one.
Also and as well. Same here. I come from a Caribbean and African American home, so it has always been instilled to me that, you know, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. Or listen more before your tongue speak. So that's always been something that was instilled in my household, and the way that my parents raised me was, you know, to be very respectful in what I say goes, because I know best. And it's just, I've always wondered about, especially since you mentioned it, that, you know, you came off the bat, this is your first time doing this mom thing, and already you're like, well, this is how it's going to be, right? And a lot of that has to do with where we come from, and it's something that Dr. Fleming has touched on our program before, about just realizing the full scope.
Yeah, it's so important. I know when I have 3 children, and my oldest child I didn't birth him from my womb, but I nurtured him in my heart. So my first baby that I gave birth to, that was interesting because it was different. And I remember I didn't know what to do with him. Like, I just didn't. I came home from the hospital. I had a C-section. So first of all, I thought I'd never walk again. It was the most dramatic experience for me. Not even traumatic, just dramatic. Because I'd never experienced anything like that before. I'd never been hospitalized for anything. And so I was sure I would never walk again after the C-section. Oh, wow. But I did, obviously, because I walked in here, right? But it was, I remember the first day I was home with him by myself. Because the first couple of weeks, I remember my godmother came when I gave birth to him. She was there, so I was so thankful for her, because I lost my mom when I was in my early 20s. And then my aunt came from Gainesville, so she was there, and she was like the breastfeeding boot camp person, which I cheated when she wasn't looking. And then my husband was there for another week, so I was good. I had community around me. And then I remember the day he went back to work, and I was sitting on the couch, and there was this peacock. I don't know how he got in the neighborhood, and he would look into the patio door at us, and I remember just crying because it was just me and this baby and the peacock. And the peacock. So yeah, basically he was my moral support, and I just cried because I'm like, I don't know what to do. I haven't been by myself. And I remember Jermaine, we call him J2, he's looking in my eyes, and I'm looking at him, and he's crying because I guess he's like, if you're scared, I don't know what to do. And so I just remember looking at him saying, I'm scared, but we're going to figure it out, I promise. And it was a moment, because I was like, this didn't come with any instructions. And I had to lean into the fact that I'm a relational being, and this is another human being, and he's a baby, and he can't tell me what he wants, but I can try to figure it out, and I think that worked out well. Not all at once, but it worked out.
It worked out.
So the intuition kicked in for you when you realized, like, this person is here, whether I'm ready for them or not.
And it had to happen, right? So how many moms do you talk to, or how often do you talk to moms and they're thinking they have it all together, or another one when they don't have that immediate connection that we're all told we're supposed to have?
Yes, lots of moms. And I think what happens is that the fear, the intuition kicks in, baby. They start to talk, the fear kicks in. The mom fear kicks in, like, okay, are you going to respect me? Are you going to see me as authority? What's happening here? So, lots of moms come in with that. But once they realize and they say, well, I am willing to work through, help me help me process all these fears. And I can relate because I'm in that journey with them, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty. And so on the other side of that, if the moms are, you know, if they have a partner, they're married, how does that factor in? That whole relationship piece. Now there's a new person added to this existing relationship.
And babies change everything, right? When the babies come into the picture, it changes a lot. Your system, your time is not yours anymore.
Naps go away.
Yes. Resources are not yours anymore. All of a sudden, they want what you're drinking, what you're eating. It's, you know, it's the funniest thing. But then, so now then we got to figure out a new system. What adjustments do we have to make? You know, and I think some people are scared of the word change. So I don't directly say, well, let's change everything. No, we're going to look at piece by piece, priorities by priorities, you know, what adjustments can you make? And what adjustments are you willing?
That's another really good distinction. I always think about it and I say change happens immediately. Like we can change something right now. And it happens as soon as we do it. It's the transition that we adjust to, right? Because it's a lot going on mentally, emotionally, you know, just physically. Did I say physically?
Yeah, right. That's right. The physical changes.
There's so many changes. So that's key. I love that, Joy.
Yeah. And then we also work on energy because you mentioned physical. So now, you know, you're having to sleep less. Okay, let's look at that. What can you do to increase your energy?
I like some of those tips today. Right? Because I'm just like,
I know, right?
My baby is 9.
Communication with a partner too in
a
marriage and making sure that you're not neglecting your marriage once the baby comes in.
That's really key.
Yes.
I about maybe a year ago, Jermaine and I were talking, and he said to me, he was excited that, you know, we had our first baby, and then when I got pregnant with my daughter, for a while he wasn't excited because he remembered how much time I had given to the baby, and now it's like another one. And I was like, wow, I never even knew you felt like that. And he was like, well, I didn't want to be selfish. I didn't want. So that's a very, you know, important thing to pay attention to because not everybody will vocalize that. Like I said, he just told me this, and she's 9.
Wow.
And I was really glad to hear that because, you know, you literally focus on the baby and everybody else and everything else kind of takes if it even gets a seat at the table, right? It just kind of goes away. Even career sometimes. So, how have you experienced the whole parenting formula with career?
Oh, yeah. So, as far as the stress that comes with career and making sure that I balance everything, synergize really and integrate, you know, and making sure that I am present when I'm at work 100% and then present 100% when I'm at home. Which is a process, right, Dr. Fleming? It's not easy. It's something that we reflect through. It's something that you have to work on and just really trial and error and seeing what works.
And what doesn't.
Yes. And if it's not working.
Shaniqua.
And I think the most important thing is realizing that if something's not working, okay, what can you do to make the change?
Yeah.
You know?
That's huge. So we're talking about career, and Alexis and Danielle, you don't have little human being babies yet, but in terms of these are some amazing ladies, and they're very career focused. So would it be okay if we call that your baby for now, and how are you nurturing that?
It is my baby. It takes precedent over many things, sometimes even my health. And so when you guys are talking about balancing and being completely present in my working space and my personal space, which may not include a physical child, but it does include family, friends, a boyfriend in my case, hi Patrick, and so, you know, those are aspects of my life that have in the past been ignored to focus on a career. And even just in our workforce, we work right now in a very women-driven workspace where I think we're the only two in our department who don't have kids. 3. There's 3 of us who don't have kids, but we are. I'm talking about the women, Andy. Andy's He's like, I don't have children. who are, our trajectory is very, very much whatever it takes to get it done, as we are looking for the next stepping stone into our careers. And there's moms all around us, so we get the calls where it's like, hey guys, I'm going to be coming in late because my kid. And I would be remiss to tell you that sometimes it's annoying. It's like, okay, yeah, I know you have them, but you also have a job, so what are you gonna do? And so it's even just finding the compassion for other people in the situation and connecting to them to make sure that your working family is intact and that we're able to support each other in that way. I think that's been one of the most interesting aspects of my career journey, is as I level up, there are all these beautiful bosses who are able to do both. And just watching them navigate those waters has been very insightful.
I think you said something that's important, though, but we've got to be honest and tell the story of how it's being done. It can't look like it's all pretty and picture perfect, because it's really not.
Exactly.
I've always tried to think about it, and I'm really blessed to have a very supportive, partner and husband. I've always thought about it as, people are saying, I see people and I hear this conversation of taking a back seat or taking a step or stepping back. And I've never looked at it like that. I've always looked at it as one of us will be in the position of support. And so there are times when Jermaine is moving forward in his career and there are things that are really, really important and that he's focusing on. And so I move into a position of support so that I'm there for him. And there are times when I'm doing that and he's definitely in that position of support for me. And it's been, it's a team effort, and it's not a competition, because I can't compete with him and he can't compete with me, and we don't want to as it relates to that. And then the other part of it is with the children. I remember with the first, when we had Jermaine, I felt guilty for going back to work at first. I felt very guilty. And I remember I was somewhere at a conference for work, and I remember Andrea Young. She was on the board of Avon, and she was speaking, and she said something, and it resonated with me. But what I took from it was this: I'm going to miss some things at work, but I don't want to miss the things that are important to me, and I'm going to miss some things, at home, because I've chosen to be a professional woman, but I'm not going to miss the things that are important to my kids or my family. And so if it's something that I think back on 5 years from now and they remember that I'm not there, then I need to be there. I mean, at work it's going to go on, but there's certain milestones in their lives that I'm just not going to be able to replace. And
how instinctive is that? Because I'm going to tell you right now, of the two of us, Danielle is the matronly one. I have not tapped into that at all whatsoever. But like, how intuitive is it where you're like, I can miss this, it's okay to miss that? Where does that part of that intuition kick in, or is it a toss up every time?
What would you say, Joy?
I think for me, maybe going back to priorities, and seeing how important how important is this for my children. And again, if you have that connection with your children, then you're able to be honest and say, listen, mommy has to work late today, but I'll be there for the next time. I believe in being honest with your children too.
And you touched back again on the relationship aspects, and I'd like to dive more into that, because like Alexis mentioned earlier, a lot of times it can be cultural or even just circumstances where parents are, okay, I'm not your friend, I'm your authority figure. My job is to make sure that you stay on the straight and narrow until, I release you from the nest, and then you're a self-sufficient adult. But I think there's so much to be said about a parent-child relationship and how those instincts come into play, because I read something the other day that said, because there's like this whole topic about like having children self-soothe, especially as babies when they can't speak. If you've met all their physical needs, they should be able to self-soothe. But then what I read a woman wrote, she wrote something that said, you know, I didn't give birth to a digestive system. And
I think I saw that one.
my child needs to know that I'm here not only to meet their physical needs, but their emotional needs as well.
Important.
So let's talk about that parental emotional support and how important that is.
Absolutely. I think that with babies, you can never overlove them, you know, and attachment is very important early on. But having said that, it doesn't mean that it's too late. You know, if there are parents right now watching or, you know, listening, you can repair that relationship with your children. And it's not about, you know, again, it's not about winning or who's right, but really being intentional about understanding what your children's needs are, you know, first.
You can repair with teenagers because they're awful.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can repair. Never too late and never too early. If you want to be proactive as well, you know, there are resources for you. Yeah.
I like that question,
Yeah.
Danielle. And I'll just, you know, I'll give a personal example in terms of, you know, if it's too much, can you know, spoil them? I don't think you can. I think every kid has different needs. And if you think about it, children grow up to be what? Adults. So we all have different needs. And it didn't just start at the point we turned 18. It starts from how we were, you know, how we were made up, how we were, you know, formed in the womb, and all those things that make us us. We're uniquely us. And so it's funny because, and they're going to see this and now they're going to know a little bit of my secret, but they all think they're my favorite. And that's because I give to them the way that they need it. Now, sometimes they're the ones that speak up and they're a little more, you know, direct about what they need. That would be my J. Yeah. And so she's going to get her needs met because she lets you know what she needs. And then there is Jermaine, who's not so much, he's not going to vocalize, but I pay attention to his cues and his clues. And so I know that, okay, he's wanting just to, you know, lay on my shoulder, or he probably won't like that if he see this, or whatever. And then there's my oldest son, Kamari, again, who won't say a lot. So there's a lot of probing there, and there's a lot of paying attention to cues and clues. And also, you know, that was a very interesting dynamic too, because again, like I told you, I didn't give birth to Kamari, but anybody that knows me probably wouldn't know that unless I told them. And so there's never been a desire of mine to quote unquote replace his mom, but there's also, I've also been very intentional about being his mother. Right? And I understand the difference, and he understands the difference. And so, you know, there's just love. There's not stepmom love or half mom love. There's just love. And that is just, you know, giving them love as they receive it in their own quote unquote love language. That's beautiful. Chaplain would say.
Beautiful. Yes. I've seen the best and worst of blended families in my
let's
family.
Talk about those.
Kevin and Pearl, my parents, both come from blended families. So my father is the only child of my grandmother and grandfather, but they both have kids from their first marriage. And he didn't grow up with any of his step-siblings at all. There was just, they were a little bit older, and the one that did live with them, there was a lot of resentment in the house, so she ended up moving back in with her family. So he never really connected with his step family in terms of them like growing up together until he was older and was able to kind of make those connections on his own. And then my mother's side of the family, her biological mother died when she was 9 years old. And so the woman that I call grandmother is the only mother she's ever really known. And she grew up with all of her kids from her first marriage in the house. So as far as I knew, I had 15 aunts and uncles on that side. I've never called them a step anything. I've never even known that dynamic until I was older. So it was just really interesting for me to be able to experience that kind of unconditional love where it's not about labels, it's just about a nurturing environment for everybody, versus a very segmented kind of situation where my grandparents view my father as a positive because that was the marriage that worked, and kind of negate the children from the other, and that dynamic really influenced. I see now the influence that it had on the way he was raised, and by proxy the way he raised us. So I'm happy he found Pearl and that she could bring some balance to that. But it's really interesting how it can go one way or the other. And I think the mom champions a lot of that. Yeah. Because she's nurture provider.
That's very true. And I think in our case, I've been a part of his life since he was an infant. So it's not like I came in, when he was 5 years old, and then now there's a new dynamic. So he's only ever known me with his father. And I've only ever loved him as if he were my child. So he was there before Jermaine and Jay were there. And it's just been one of those things where you really have to think about the children involved. And for me, I'm not going to get involved in conversations that are counterproductive for the kids, right? And so we're always going to come back to the goal of what's right for these children, but also what's right for me. And boundaries are important. Right. And saying these are things that we will do, and these are things that we're not going to do. And there's some very clear boundaries for me of things I'm not going to deal with. And there's also not a desire for me to take over the responsibility for my husband to be the champion for what needs to happen, from his perspective. And so I think that's really important. And also, understanding that there are going to be dynamics all around the family, but it's the core where you determine what you're going to allow in and what you're going to keep out. And those were just things that worked for us. And there are people that like it, and there are people that don't. Right. But at the beginning and the middle and at the end of the day, it's our family.
Right. Definitely. And I think at the end of the day, for all parents, or, even if you don't have children for your career, if you will, intuitively, all you want to see, maybe for that parent-child relationship is for your child to be an independent adult who can flourish in society with whatever hopes and dreams that they wanted to fulfill. So obviously there's different ways of going about it, and unfortunately, we live in a broken world where it's not always done perfectly, but there's so many tools and ways that things can be done better.
Absolutely.
I follow Joy on many social media platforms, and the tips that you give are amazing. So if you could share a Mother's Day tip with our audience, what would you share? What would be your favorite
Mother's Day tip for our audience?
Men and women and children.
Okay. There's a quote that was said by a fellow mom, and she said that stress is inevitable, but it's not mandatory. So, for those of you who are listening out there, whatever it is, whatever stage of life you're in and the circumstances that you're having to deal with, step back and look at the big picture and see what you can gain out of that, and maybe make adjustments so you're even in your overwhelm, you're not so stressed out, and you can work through it.
That's good stuff.
What a great tip.
Yeah.
Stress is
definitely
but
use
not
that
mandatory.
in our work baby as well. So that it doesn't have to be mandatory. That is definitely a tip. Dr. Shaniqua Fleming, do you have any gems for us today?
Yes. No new gems. Just happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, and happy Mother's Day to those that may be missing their mom. This is another Mother's Day that I don't physically have my mom here, but sometimes I open my mouth and she just comes out. So she's always here. And for all of you that are watching, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not a mom and you, like Alexis and Danielle said, you have a career, nurture those careers, but make sure to nurture yourself too.
Yes. Thank you. And definitely also to again, women as in general, even if you're not a mom, there's always someone that you're influencing, whether it be a sibling, a friend, someone that you mentor. So we're just celebrating them as well.
Women are amazing, right?
Yes. Pretty cool to be a woman.
So happy Mother's Day.
Yes, happy Mother's Day, guys. Make sure you tune in next month for our next segment. Follow us on all social media platforms. We are at City of Miramar. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about today's segment, and we'd love to hear from you about any other topics that you'd like us to discuss on Beyond Boundaries. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next month.
Have a good day. Bye.